All right, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. Sun is out. It's a beautiful day. Enjoy it. We're going to do a Rashi actually from Tezaveh, but not from the fourth Aliyah today. Again, borrowing from some of the other Aliyahs. We're going to do a Rashi here from the second Aliyah, which is really what's supposed to be from Monday. But Monday we borrowed from Sunday, so I think today we'll borrow a little bit from Monday. In this Aliyah, we talk about the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, which is, of course, hanging from and placed on the ephod, which was sort of the apron that was worn over the robe of the Kohen. And it talks about the way that the breastplate was connected to the ephod. I was looking for a good picture to show you. There wasn't really one in the book that I had. And there's many online, but none are perfect. And Debbie's is too small to see. So we can't take a look at hers, but you'll have to trust me, and maybe you'll find a picture in one of your chumashim. I think there's actually a good picture in the Art Scroll Stone Chumash, but I don't have it here in front of me. So the Torah tells us that they're supposed to make sharsharos zahav tahor, migbalos taseosa masa avos, natata es sharsharos haavosos al hamishbetzos. The whole system of hooks and chains that are supposed to connect this breastplate made of gold with all the stones in it to the ephod, to the apron, which hung on the Kohen with straps above his shoulders, and then it was sort of a garment on the bottom, but it hung from there. And it's more specifically referenced here a little bit later. Vasisa al hachoshen, on the choshen itself, on the gold of the choshen, you're supposed to make shar shos gavlus Maaseh avos zahav tahor. So the question is about really the etymology of the word sharshos, which seems to be the chains that they hung from. So Rashi says here sharshos, which the taf here is really about the plural. So if you look at the singular form of the chain, it's really shin resh shin. So he says it's lashon sharshe ilan. Very fascinating use of the Hebrew language over here. So it's from the word shoresh, which is root, like the roots of a tree. Why are the chains that connect the ephod to the choshen referenced in Hebrew as shoresh or sharshos, the shorashim, even though in Hebrew the shorashim of a tree would be plural in the masculine form, shorashim, but here they're sharshos, but it's related. Why is it related to the word shoresh, the roots of a tree? Because the purpose of the roots are not just to gain the moisture and nutrition from the ground, but it's to anchor the tree in the ground. It's what holds it to the ground. You ever see these gigantic trees, tall trees, heavy trees? And of course, we know that the reason they're still standing and they don't fall over, even though they're so top heavy, is because of the incredible system of roots that are in the ground holding it exactly in place, holding all of that weight in place. So the role of these chains is also to anchor the choshen in place onto the ephod. So because the role of a chain, at least in this situation, is to anchor something in place, so it makes sense that it would be called shoresh. And therefore, this says, Asisa al hachoshen, on the choshen, you should make sharshos, these chains that will hold it in place. And the chains are also of gold. Now, he mentions that there's an oddity in the passage, because if you looked earlier, the word used to describe the chains is sharshiros. Now, it's deceiving because it looks eerily similar. I should have highlighted a different color. But sharshiros versus sharshos. So there's one letter difference, the resh, okay? So the question is now, are these two words related? They're both referring to the same thing, the chains, but is the etymology of the word the same? So at first Rashi says, Vehen shtei sharsharos ha'amuros lamala. Certainly, the sharshos here are definitely the sharsharos related above. Okay, so they're both talking about the exact same chains. That's not a question. It's very clear that at both spots here in the Torah, they're talking about the same piece of the vestments of the Kohen Gadol. That's clear. They're both talking about the chains. The question is simply now about the etymology. Are these two different words, entirely different words, used to describe the chains? Or are they actually the same word, but just spelled differently here without the resh? And if so, why? It's a really interesting question of etymology. So he says, Avshar Shiros Patar Menachem Min Saruk Lashon Shorashim. Va'amar Sheharesh Yeserabo, Kmo Mem Shebishilshom, Umem Sheberekam. So Menachem Min Saruk, one of the great medieval grammarians, Hebrew grammarians, explains, now quoted here by Rashi, that they're the exact same word. Sharsharos and sharshos are the same. It's just that there's an extra resh. Oftentimes in biblical Hebrew, you have extra letters, which are not really significant. Now, of course, there is a significance why HaKadosh Baruch Hu spelled them that way, but that's for another time. In the grammatical sense, there is no difference between the words. So reik, empty, and reikam, with the extra mem, are the exact same meaning, the exact same word. But sometimes there's an extra mem, and sometimes there isn't. Sometimes the Torah will say reik, and sometimes it will say reikam. So he says the same thing over here. Really, the word is shoresh, sharshos. But here there was an extra resh, sharsha ros, a little extra resh over here. But Rashi says, no, it's not the same. The Eini roes dvarav. I disagree, says Rashi. Ella sharsharos b'lashon ivris, kishalshelas b'lashon mishnah. Sharsharos, the etymology is not related to shoresh, like sharshos. When you take away the taf of plural, it's just shoresh. Here, it's not shoresh. It's specifically sharshar. So he says sharshar in biblical Hebrew is related to the Mishnaic Hebrew word shalsheles. Okay, sharsharos is related to shalsheles, the resh and the lamed switch. So instead of sharshar, it's shalshal. What's a shalsheles? Shalsheles is a chain. What does that mean? It means that sharsharos, both the words sharsharos and sharshos are both referring to the chains from the ephod to the choshen. But the chains serve two functions, and therefore they're described in two different ways. One, according to Rashi, is as a root, like a shoresh, because the purpose of the chains was to anchor them in place. But one is describing the look of those strings. They didn't look like straight golden strings. They looked like chains, a loop connected to a loop, connected to a loop, connected to a loop, which is why the other word is used as sharsharos, like shalshalos, like chains. So one is describing the function, sharshos, related to the word shoresh, and one is describing the look, which is like a chain look, like a link in a chain look, which is why the Torah uses the word sharsharos, related to the word shalshalos. So it's a very fascinating lesson here in Hebrew grammar that you can see the intricacy of the Torah within the span of less than 10 psukim. You have two words describing the exact same piece of the clothing. The two words are almost identical except for a resh, which might mean nothing, working Menachem and Saruk, or according to Rashi, might mean the world, because one is giving us a glimpse into the look, one is giving us a glimpse into the function with two entirely different etymologies. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You too, Rabbi.
That was beautiful, Rabbi. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
have a
you.
good one.
Thank you,
Mazel tov,
Rabbi.
Yitzhak.
Thank you.
See you later.